undivided Trinity, one God. Amen. Last week, John the Baptist was the main character, and the operative concepts of the day were longing and judgment. This week, John and Jesus share the center of the story, and the story markers are expectation and doubt. Advent is expectation. We are expecting the birth of the Holy Child. Add to that the wondrous readings, hopeful readings from the prophet Isaiah, so glorious, even more glorious if you've sung Handel's Messiah. The words and the tunes sing in my head whenever I hear these passages read. That contralto recitative, then shall the eyes of the blind be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then shall the lame man leap as an hart, and the tongue of the dumb shall sing, and he shall feed his flock. It calls forth all of our deepest desires. My vestments are pink today, a tradition on Advent 3, Gaudete, Rejoice Sunday, when this reading and the psalm are so full of joy. But throughout Advent, there's a big contrast between the first lesson and the gospel. The Matthew gospel says, Emmanuel, God is with us. God is coming, and it ain't happening the way you expect. A thief in the night, a thresher with a winnowing fork, a poor peasant family, and this week we sit speechless in a dungeon cell with John the Baptist, his fire gone out, his question, was it all for nothing? And no wonder, for us too, the state of our world, the reality of global warming, the degree of requisite change that is not happening, the vast income and racial inequality. On the evidence of our senses, despair is a perfectly rational choice. John's personality may be somewhat intolerant of ambiguity, but today we sit with him and his poignant question, are we the one who is to come? Or do we have to wait for someone else? Last week I talked about longing. John's longing and belief in the imminent kingdom of heaven, and our longing for truly righteous leadership and the making right of wrongs. It seems to me that that longing is built into us as creatures made in the image of God. The problem comes with our images, agendas, and expectations. I sometimes read a commentator, Nathan Nettleton, who blogs at laughingbird.net from a church in Australia. In relation to this gospel, he wrote, a big part of our problem with Jesus is that we hear things in his message that connect with things that are huge on our agenda. And we latch onto them and build big and urgent expectations around them. Maybe it's a social agenda, sexism or racism or homophobia, or some personal agenda like overcoming a particular weakness or having a perfect marriage. And we lose sight of the fact that for Jesus, this agenda is just one little part of a very big picture that may even include things that we would rather were not part of the picture at all. We want our agenda now. We want our agenda fulfilled, sometimes even specifically at the expense of someone else's. So Jesus' way becomes a stumbling block, which is the meaning in Greek of the word Jesus uses when he says to John, "Blessed is anyone who takes no offense at me." Nettleton continues, as long as we're telling Jesus what it means to be Messiah and where he needs to step in and what needs to be done to put the world right again, Jesus will fail us and scandalize and disappoint us. But if we can let go of our presumptuous expectations to discern the action of the coming Christ in the things that he's actually doing here and now, in the opening of stubbornly closed eyes, in the declaring clean of those who were shunned as unclean, in the moments when something given up for dead is suddenly up and full of life, if we can allow our expectations of the Messiah to be rewritten by the Messiah himself, then perhaps we will find ourselves gathered up into that wonderful, wondrous vision where sorrow and sighing flee away. That's what Jesus says to John. Look, these things are happening. New life is present. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. I had 3 thought-provoking interactions this week. First with my son Dan in Japan, whose family I hope to visit this spring. His family's life is complicated. He and his wife commute to work in opposite directions, an hour each way. Their jobs are stressful, and managing home, children, jobs, and relationship is demanding, to say the least. Now, if you are a parent of adult children, you know the thing that you most want to do is help. But Dan cautioned me. We want you to come, and you can help, but please be careful that you're not trying to fix. You have a bit of that tendency, you know. It stung a little, but he's totally right. I was aware of that tendency in my second interchange, this time in relation to an extended family member who suffers from mental illness and is a master of passive-aggressive communication. I realized, not for the first time, that when I can't fix something, I tend to feel less compassion, especially when the resistance to being fixed is so pronounced. And thirdly, I read a story in Richard Rohr's daily postings, written by an Episcopal priest, Father Adam Bucco, who wrote about his extensive training in working with homeless youth, his professional therapeutic skills and techniques that could fix people's lives, he says, until one day I realized that what I was doing was not really working. Kids were going through our program and still ending up on the street, just one step away from being hurt or killed. I started feeling helpless, and my confidence was shattered. All I had left was faith and trust that I was where God was calling me to be. As a result of my crisis, my work evolved from a highly praised, solution-oriented, and evidence-based program into prayer. And when I say prayer, I don't necessarily mean I was saying prayers with people. Instead, I was showing up for every person prayerfully, gathering all my knowledge and tools and entrusting them to God, saying to God, I think you are calling me to do something here. This is what I come with. I offer it to you. Take it, change it, make it useful, because I feel so small and useless here. So I would just be with them in a state of not knowing and trust, paying attention to what was, bearing a witness to their pain, helping them to hold their pain, and often knowing brokenness with them as a result of what I was witnessing. Righteous John longed for the world to be made right. And Jesus was and is making the world right, just not always along the lines of our desires and expectations, our agendas. What is the agenda of the Holy One? I don't know. We don't know. We know that it is righteousness. We know that the kingdom of heaven is among us. We know that it's about love. And other than that, just like Father Adam, all we are left with is faith and trust, seeking to be in the place where God is calling us to be. The reading from James says, "Be patient, therefore, beloved. Strengthen your hearts. Do not grumble." And Isaiah says the same thing. Say to strengthen the weak hands and make firm the feeble knees. Say to those who are of a fearful heart, "Be strong, do not fear. Your God will come to save." Isaiah's fellow prophet Habakkuk wrote, "The Lord answered me and said, write the vision, make it plain on tablets so that a runner may read it. For there is still a vision for the appointed time. It speaks of the end and does not lie. If it seems to tarry, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay." Courage, compassion, and trust in the midst of not being able to fix. Patience. Remember the mustard seed. Patience doesn't mean passivity, though. Wendell Berry again. Wendell Berry, farmer, poet, novelist, environmental activist. In his poem called Manifesto, the Mad Farmer Liberation Front, he advises in part, "So friends, every day do something that does not compute. Love the Lord, love the world, work for nothing. Love someone who doesn't deserve it. Embrace the flag, hope to live in that free republic for which it stands. Praise ignorance, for what man has not encountered, he has not destroyed. Ask the questions that have no answers. Invest in the millennium, plant sequoias. Say that your main crop is the forest that you did not plant and will not live to harvest. Say that the leaves are harvested when they have brought it into the mold. Call that prophet. Prophesy such returns. Put your faith in the 2 inches of humus that will build under the tree every 1,000 years. Listen to carrion. Put your ear close and hear the faint chattering of the songs that are to come. Laugh. Laughter is immeasurable. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. As soon as the generals and the politicos can predict the motions of your mind, lose it. Leave it as a sign to mark the false trail, the way you did not go. Be like the fox, who makes some more tracks than necessary, some in the wrong direction. Practice resurrection. So, be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. And to paraphrase Mother Teresa, love anyway. We are followers of Jesus the Christ, who comes defying all our expectations, who loves beyond our comprehension. Amen.